Hey guys, welcome back to Inside the Storm. This is your weekly show on everything Newport Storm FC. I'm your host Zane, and today we've got a really good show lined up for you. So firstly, we're going to be jumping into Newport Storm's round 2 result against Mooney Valley, as well as discussing some of the reasons why that result went the way it did, hearing from some of the players, discussing the plans for the squad in the Easter break, and seeing how we're going to approach round 3 differently. And yeah, let's get straight into the show. So obviously, first loss of the season is never a nice thing, and it coming in round 2 is a bit unfortunate. It was a really tight game. Actually, it was probably on the balance of chances. You'd say that we probably deserved a result. There were some really big chances that the team got unlucky with, hitting the post twice in the first half, scoring an offside goal. Even in the second half, there were a lot of big chances that we just weren't able to convert. And obviously, football's like that. You're going to have games where you miss some chances and the other team capitalizes. And that's just part of football. But obviously, it was definitely tough to take a loss in that game on the balance of just the big chances created. Obviously, weather was a big factor in that as well. It was a really tough set of conditions to play in. I think some of the players spoke about that in their post-game interviews as well. The fact that it had been raining so much and the state of the pitch with the rain was not easy. Obviously, some of the other games in the division got postponed because of the conditions, but the refs saw that the pitch was good enough to play in, and maybe that is something that was a little bit divisive. But again, you never want to blame pitch conditions for performance, and I think if a little bit more luck went in our favor, then you're looking at a really comfortable win, a 3-1, a 4-1 game even. Obviously, conceding a penalty in the first half in the 45th minute, also really unlucky. And the circumstances of that penalty were quite unlucky as well. It's a handball, but I think maybe certain refs might not give that, as it doesn't look particularly intentional. The letter of the law is your hand in natural position, and I guess in that you'd say it wasn't, but there's definitely some debate around that. And I think going in at halftime, you saw a game that had been really dominated by us as the home team, ending in a 1-1 draw result at halftime. And I think Coach Rex's halftime team talk was kind of around that game really should have been out of sight, and it wasn't. And that's football. That's the unfortunate side of it. And you go out in the second half, and clearly Mooney Valley was really up for it. And not to say that we weren't, but just I think they've had a different facet to their game, and something where a team that wants to play on the ground and combine and really take advantage of their attacking principles and their attacking players. It's really hard to do that on the set of conditions that the team was playing in, with just the amount of rain there was. The ball doesn't travel as well. The ball gets stuck. You really are restricted to playing 3-4 touch football when the team wants to be playing one touch football. And there were certainly some positives, I think, in the performance. There were a lot of players that had really good games. I think if you're walking away from that in a slightly different circumstance, Gorky's coming out with a hat trick. If Bruno's maybe a meter behind where he was, or even maybe 20 centimeters even, he's looking at a goal from himself. Obviously, the goal that was scored was a brilliant corner routine. Not sure if I think Nick was given credit for that, but it was almost close to being an Olympico from Blue's delivery. So there were some really positives. I think Blue, as the captain, had a really strong game. But again, that's football. When you play against a really quality side, they are able to punish you, and I think that's what happened. Here's a quick listen in from a couple of the players talking about their thoughts on the game.
Look, I thought we played all right. Obviously, the conditions weren't great today. The pitch was a bit muddy. I think we couldn't play our game the way we wanted. We tried to adapt, and I think we had a little bit of success, but we just couldn't finish our chances, really. I think I could have played a bit better. I think as a team, we were doing all right. I think we just need that extra sort of 10%. When they kind of step up, we also need to step up and either match them or exceed them, pretty much.
I think it shows us our competitors in the league. Obviously, we want to win the league this year, and it just shows the standard we need to put up against week in, week out. So definitely a good fight from the boys, but yeah, we have to lift up, and I think that's what we'll definitely do in the coming weeks and throughout the season now.
Yeah, unfortunately lost 2-1. Not very happy. I think we all know that we can play better. We had a strategy, and I feel like it worked well in the beginning. We had a couple of chances. I had a couple of chances too. In first half, first 30 minutes. Fortunately, hit the post 2 times. Yeah, not very happy about that. But yeah, and then second half, I don't think we played as well as we can. Just lost simple balls. I feel like we didn't want it enough. We didn't put in the work. We didn't put in the effort, except for the last 5 minutes, for maybe, but that was too late. So yeah, not very happy. Now we have a break next week, and I think we're gonna work very hard the next 2 weeks in training, and we're definitely not gonna lose again.
Now, obviously, moving into this weekend, we don't have any games because of the Easter break. I think the goal is in training to kind of work on taking this as a lesson, and saying that, a loss is at some point in the season expected. It's hard to have that expectation that you're going to go invincible, and I think arguably that's not particularly realistic in a really tough league. So the positives are that, you get this kind of lesson early, and I think when you see the goals back that we conceded and you watch them back, you think, okay, these are lessons that the team's going to take and learn from, and ideally those don't happen again. And maybe that coming early in the season is helpful because the coaching staff is able to adjust and the team and the players are able to learn, especially when you have a younger squad, they're able to learn from those mistakes. So maybe in the second half of that game, if that game is played again, it's a completely different story. Maybe it ends up being a 4-1, 5-1 win for us. But yeah, those are the lessons, and I think that's a really positive that, getting a week off means that this week the pressure isn't on preparing for a new opponent, and instead really fully reflecting in and getting to do game tape and video reviews and understand what went wrong and how it went wrong and how the team can move forward. And I think that's the job of the coaching staff, and obviously a coach like Rex, who is super, super detailed in his analysis, will look at those things and see exactly where to improve it. So it's definitely positives to take from a negative result. And looking around the league, obviously a lot of the games got washed out, so the standings aren't as accurate as they could be because a couple of the teams have still only played one game. Bendigo again looks very, very strong. They had a really, really resounding win against Thornbury, who we played last weekend. So I think you're starting to see the teams take shape, and obviously Mooney Valley is going to be a very strong team. They've gone undefeated now, 2 wins in 2 games, and they look like a really, really strong team. So it's not like it was a really, really weak team that we played against. We've dropped points against a team that arguably should be competing for the league, and I think it's given us extra motivation when we play that away leg, but also a good lesson for the team learning and moving into the next week's competitions. Obviously, match week 3 is going to be really, really big for us. It's another home game, and the goal is to bounce back, and that's super important for the team. That after you face adversity, it's how you respond to that adversity. After you face a loss, it's do you react and do you get that positive momentum back? Because if you do, it's huge for the season, and it's still so early. You can't say that, oh, maybe this team isn't able to win the title or win the league or compete, because it's so early, and one roadblock doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Even you look at last season, there was the first loss came in match week 9, but it was that was still a really, really big shock, and obviously that was later on. That was almost at the halfway point of the season. But even that was it was really important that match week 10 was a big win for the team, because you want to see that response from the players, you want to see that drive from the players, and I think that's the job of the coaching staff, to kind of get that out of the players, and elicit that reaction and that kind of fight that you want to see from the team. And I think that's what the message was from Coach Rex at the end of the game, and just bring the team together, understand that circumstances went against the team on the day, and it was less of a performance thing and more of just being unlucky, but making sure that you get that response. So for the team, the goal is obviously match week 3 come out. So I think it's the match week 4 is away, so it's going to be our last home game for at least a week or 2. So get that reaction from the team, get the reaction from the players, from the home fans, even from the coaching staff, and make sure that's a win. And I think match week 3 is a really, really winnable game. We're playing against a team that has dropped points in the first 2 games. So it should be a game that we're able to get some momentum back, and that'll be that'll be after that. It'll be 3 games in, so you'll get a good gauge if you know you're looking at 2 wins, 1 loss, 66% win rate, and you're also thinking that for a young team, it's a good start, or it's not a bad start. 6 points from 9 games, it's not a bad start at all, and definitely that is the form that needs to be carried out throughout the season, and the expectation is not to lose any more games, obviously, and when you're playing and when you're competing against a team like Bendigo, then you have to be close to flawless. So positives overall, especially moving into next week. Taking the week off, having the weekend to kind of refocus in training, be able to refocus. Obviously, check out the training content that the club's doing. But definitely there are some positives to take, and the overarching narrative of a loss is usually negative. But in this case, there are a lot more positives than you might first expect. Especially if you watch the highlights back, you see the chances, and you think, oh, if luck goes a little differently on that day, then that first half is 4-0 and completely out of sight, and we're all sitting here thinking, what a huge resounding win going into match week 3. But that's football. That's the fine margins that the game's played at. So definitely check out the rest of the content this week. The squad has really come together. So if you can make it to match week 3. Not this weekend, the next weekend, then come down. Obviously, it's our last home game for a few weeks, so come down, show your support, experience the match day. Reserves also had a very exciting game, going from 1-0 up to 2-1 up to eventually finishing the game, unfortunately, with a 4-2 loss, but a very exciting and thrilling game, and honestly a good performance from the reserve team as well. Obviously, the games are live streamed on YouTube, so you can check them out down below. But also, highlights come out on the socials, as they always do, the little match day vlogs. But yeah, come down, be a part of the senior team, and we will see you soon. Thank you.